The Battle of Honey Springs basically removes the Confederacy from Oklahoma for the rest of the war.
The Civil War and the Reconstruction treaties together would change Oklahoma history forever.
Out of 107 documented conflicts, it was the largest to take place in Indian Territory during the Civil War.
One of the things that we so often overlook are the black soldiers.
The 1st Kansas Volunteer Infantry Regiment, who comprised the very first African Americans to ever fight in the Civil War for the North.
It is said to be the most significant battle west of the Mississippi River. And the 1st Kansas, played an important part of it.
They fought and they died and they shed their blood for the Union cause.
You have white troops, you have black troops, you have Indian troops. And the Indian troops are divided.
It all is represented on one day at one place, July 17th, 1863, on the battleground near Honey Springs.
Nowhere else did this happen in the Civil War. It happened right there at the Battle of Honey Springs.
To really understand this battle, or to understand, you have to kind of go back. And you have to go all the way back to 1830s.
Before the Civil War, Indian Territory was rich in resources.
The government has ordered all the Indians off their land coming to Indian Territory.
They would have seen some of the fine Indian homes and plantations, some of the businesses that had been built.
The 5 civilized tribes had been removed to Indian Territory, and it consisted of the Cherokee, the Choctaw, the Chickasaw, the Creek, and the Seminole nations.
And there was a lot of traveling through Indian Territory because the good roads came through either north-south or east-west along the Canadian River.
So the Texas Road, it's an organized trail to get supplies out of Texas into the Confederacy and into Oklahoma.
Indian Territory was a buffer between Free State Kansas and Slave State Texas. It just so happens that the Texas Road ran straight through Honey Springs.
It's where they're going to ship supplies in. Napoleon says it best, right? An army travels on its stomach.
Whoever controlled the Texas Road controlled Indian Territory, and that's what was so pivotal, tactically speaking, about the Battle of Honey Springs.
The all-important Texas Road. It splits the Indian Territory, driving right through us here at Honey Springs. Strategically, this thoroughfare serves as the major supply route for troop movement and our military resources. Holding the road is the key to victory here in the frontier. With 6,000 soldiers and 4 artillery pieces under my command, the plan is simple. We are to receive General Cabell and his reinforcements here at Honey Springs tomorrow. Then we will take back Fort Gibson from the federal forces. I have brought to this fight an army of Indian volunteers from the Great Creek, Choctaw, and Chickasaw tribes. And the 29th Texas Regiment, among others, have come north to fill out our ranks. But my lookouts and spies have brought me disheartening news. The Union Army is on the offensive, and they mean to march on us before Cabell's arrival. However, I believe we have a short breath of space as the Arkansas River stands between us. She runs deep with the rain. Hopefully, too deep to ford.
General Cooper, sir. The Yanks have crossed over. They've broken our pickets and pushed back our cavalry.
Assume a defensive and make ready all mountain howitzers. I want to drive them back before the day sets.
This battle took place July 17th, 1863, after Union victories at Gettysburg and Vicksburg. Both sides want to be on the offensive for different reasons.
And so Cooper is given the directive to set up camp somewhere south. He chooses the little Muscogee Creek community of Honey Springs.
On the left flank, he had the 1st and 2nd Creek volunteers. On the right flank, he had the 1st and 2nd Cherokee volunteers. In the middle of the lines, he had the 20th, the 29th, and the 5th Texas.
You can pull your resources together, and we'll send an army out of Arkansas to join you under General Cabell.
And for the North, Blunt has only about 3,000 soldiers. He's already outnumbered by Cooper. And so if these two generals are able to unite their armies, his fear is that they're going to just wipe out Fort Gibson and overrun him. So he makes a decision, and probably a smart one, that he needs to attack Cooper before these two armies can unite.
With victories at Gettysburg and at Vicksburg, I push my army with a newfound momentum. The Union is no longer on the defensive here in Indian Territory. And though we are outnumbered 2 to 1, our men had no hesitation as we marched through rain and river, 40 miles within the night. The Confederates will find our advantage twofold. First, by the dominance of our 12 pieces of artillery. Second, through the bravery of the men. The 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Indian Home Guards, made up of the discarded Creek, Cherokee, Seminole, and other tribes, refugees fighting to go back to the land they once called home. And the 1st Kansas Infantry consisted of all colored Union soldiers, now free men, fighting for the freedom of their Southern brothers. And together, we take the fight to them.
Blunt, the aggressor, this bold man of God who's on a mission, who, even though he's ill at the time, says, we're going to attack Cooper's folks before Cabell can come in and join forces. They're marching in the rain down the Texas road. They've driven off a couple of picket lines of Confederates trying to find out what's going on.
He has to get across the Arkansas River. It's deep at this point. It's been raining.
The 1st Kansas Volunteer Infantry Regiment, who consisted of the very first African Americans to ever fight in the Civil War for the North. They consisted of many former runaway slaves from Missouri and Arkansas. They had run away to Free State, Kansas, and they had made lives for themselves.
The decision for a person to run away, the decision to take his chances on trying to leave, was such an unbelievably courageous act to do. If you were caught, and most likely the chances are you would be, there's no manner of punishment. So these were the people who had the courage and the stamina to be able to say that, you know, I'm gonna try. I'm gonna go for freedom.
Well, on July 17th, 1863, with these two armies facing each other, the artillery's already been firing. James Williams is a colonel fighting under Blunt, who believes in his soldiers. He's in command of the 1st Kansas Colored Regiment.
His speech to the troops the morning before was an awesome speech, and he made that talk after having seen them in battle.
We are engaged in a holy war for a holier cause, for the preservation of the Union and the equal rights and freedom of all men. The Southern armies fight for continued existence and extension of slavery, and if successful, to take you and your wives and children back onto that slavery. Show the enemy this day that you are vigorous, that you are eager to fight for your freedom. The people of the whole country will read the reports of your conduct in this engagement. Let it be that of brave, disciplined men!
The world is watching. They know at the end of that battle, all of these commanders are going to be sending reports back to Washington, D.C. that will be leaked to the press. They know that most Americans are absolute racists in 1863.
It was important because he needed to make sure that everybody knew that black people were really willing to and able to fight for their own freedom.
Chili McIntosh, one of the commanders of the Muscogee Creek Regiment. And this warrior tradition, it's in Chili McIntosh that day. So when he speaks to his troops, he reminds them, you are the proud sons and grandsons of people who fought for you before.
When you first saw the light, it was said of you, a man-child is born. You must prove today whether or not this saying of you was true. The sun that hangs over our heads has no death, no end of days. It will continue indefinitely to rise and to set. But with you, it is different.
He said there would be no nobler death than the death in a fight today.
You are fighting today not just for this piece of ground. You are part of this circle of life. You're fighting for your grandparents and your parents, your brothers and sisters, your children.
Man must die sometime, and since he must die, he can find no nobler death than that which overtakes him while fighting for his home, his fires, and his country.
You will be remembered. You'll be in the songs of the tribe. You'll be talked about around the campfires. You will be immortal. That had worked since the days of Achilles. It worked for Chili McIntosh on that critical day on the battlefield at Honey Springs.
Simultaneously, as the skirmishers get return fire, there ensues an artillery duel for about 2 hours.
Call upon my ambulance. See that Buckner is well tended to. My men have clashed with different batteries of the enemy all morning. But now is the time to push this engagement. I move up rapidly. Both columns are deployed right and left, and in less than 5 minutes, my whole force is in the line of battle, covering the enemy's entire front. Without halting, I move them forward, throwing out skirmishers to reveal their artillery. And once revealed, I let my superior artillery take charge.
The Confederates brought a 4-gun battery and were outgunned 3-1 by the Union. The Union brought 12 guns.
And you can fire some of these 12-pounders. They can be very accurate a mile away.
On my command, fire!
During this time, where there's clouds of smoke in the air, nobody can see one another, 1st Kansas Volunteer Infantry Regiment, they are ordered to slowly move forward and try to take the artillery of the Confederacy.
Double quick! Form a firing line!
We've heard the whispers among the white soldiers. There will be no due justice, only death if we're captured. That's just as plain as can be. Mr. Lincoln gave me my freedom, and now I'm here to fight for it. So I say, let me get an eagle on my button, a musket on my shoulder, and bullets in my pocket. We will stand our ground. For I know what could be given today can be taken tomorrow. We are here to make sure that will not be.
Steady, men! Ready! Aim! Fire!
You have this well-trained unit, the 1st Kansas Colored Regiment. They're well-led, they're well-armed, motivated. And then you have General Blunt, who's an abolitionist. So he puts them in the middle of the fighting.
He believes in their ability to fight. He wouldn't put them there otherwise. Because if they break through the center of the line, just like on the football team, you just disrupted everything.
Them Jayhawkers can call me Reb, Johnny, or Grayback. They'd be wrong, because I'm truly a son of Texas. A Texan in birth, and if the good Lords call me home this very day, Texan in death. My father was a farmer like me. He fought the Mexican powers from the south for our independence. And now, well, I fight the invading powers from the north that would threaten that independence. In the name of my rights and liberties, which I believe have been trampled upon, I fight for cause and comrades. This ain't a war rebellion. Not to me. Now, it's a matter of self-determination.
The 2nd Indian Home Guard on their right accidentally gets in front of them.
Those men there. Caught between the lines. Drop the signal corps into action. Signal those men to fall back! To fall back now!
Their commander, Bowles, orders them through bugle call and signal corps to fall back. Not retreat, but fall back.
And that Texas unit, they were prepared to fight a defensive front. The Texans saw an opportunity. They felt they were retreating. They were going to take advantage of that.
And he orders an attack. Remember, those of the 1st Kansas Volunteer Infantry Regiment are right there in the middle of the lines.
Their lines falling back! Let's seize our chance and press, boys! Come on!
Here they come, boys! Hold the line! Fire!
They fire volley after volley into the 29th and some of the 20th Texas.
They found out that absolutely the first Kansas would fight. They were glad to fight.
We got Johnny Reb on the run! Huzzah! Huzzah! Huzzah!
They shoot down 3 color bearers of the 29th Texas in succession. That then starts the breaking of the middle of the lines for the Confederate forces and turns the tide of the battle for the Union.
You see in the reports that the Confederate powder was bad. They got it from Mexico because they didn't have any place else to get it. Mexican powder is recorded as being woefully inadequate. The South just was never able to catch up with the kind of industrial capacity the North had.
Cooper had to make a decision. He said, what do we do? He said, we've got to defend the bridge to get our forces out of here. We've got to save our artillery to fight another day. Cabell is on his way. Maybe he's close. Maybe we'll pull back and join those Arkansas troops and we'll counterattack. And so his troops, Indian and non-Indian from Texas, held their ground. They were fighting, keeping the Union while the units were withdrawing. That's where most of the Confederates lost their lives.
Defend the bridge! Once the cannons have come through, fall back, set fire to the depot. Hold the bridge. Nothing must fall into their hands.
It's extremely interesting in the fact that branches, particularly the Creeks and the Cherokees, were fighting on both sides.
The Indian troops are divided. Even though they're from the same nation, they're divided.
I have no trust for these white men from the North. General Cooper and his lieutenants have shown their worth to me. He is a good ally to the Creek Indian. He fights for us, and so we will fight with him. And of those traitors of our tribe that wear the blue, the ones who still call themselves Creek, they mean less than any white man I may wreck today. Ah! Curses this wet powder!
Some of the Indians know that the Southerners had kicked them out of their homelands.
Those people who were more traditional, Ahoboth-Yahola, who was very traditional.
You deprived us of our traditional way of life. We're going with the Union.
They literally forced them outside into Kansas, and there they became refugees. Now that's important to understand for the Battle of Honey Springs because they would later form the 1st Indian Home Guard Regiment. Those of the Muscogee Creek Nation who fought for the Union were fighting in their own homelands. They were literally fighting against their own people.
I can see the remains of my tribe. The faces of my brothers fighting against me. The same faces that forced us north to be refugees in our own land. My tribe is now in slivers. Each promised their own Indian independence by warring white men. White men whose oaths have no honor. But at last, I remember the trail of blood on ice. I remember my brothers slaughtering their own. My family. And I remember the one true Creek leader, Beasley Yahola. And that is for whose memory I will fight.
They were fighting for their homes. They were fighting for their ways of life. They were fighting against their own brothers that day. The Confederates defend the bridge as fiercely as they possibly can.
So it slows down the Union advance, gives Cooper enough time to pull his troops through, to load his wagons, to get as many supplies out to fight another day. What he can't get out, he sets fire to it, burns the depot, burns the supplies, and here come the Choctaw soldiers moving back through the little village of Honey Springs, down the Texas Road, where they do meet up with Cabell's forces, but not in time to counter-march.
Our forces were now in full retreat and the enemy pressing them closely. The men behaved admirably. They contributed greatly to the safe retreat of the train and the brigade. I feel confident we could have made good the defense of the position at Elk Creek, but for the worthlessness of our ammunition. Douglas H. Cooper, Brigadier General.
After the war, when the United States comes back and basically looks over, they're going to look at these Indian engagements and basically blame them for breaking treaties.
Even though the majority of the Cherokee Nation, after 1862, fought for the Union, they said, no, it didn't matter. You signed a treaty, so therefore you're guilty.
The government used this as an excuse by the 1870s to make all the former treaties null and void.
And so it's not hard for them when they're looking for a cause that they want to open up farming to more whites to find a reason, and they can look at the war.
By the way, the Choctaw and Chickasaw Nation took in 18,000 refugees.
When I did the top 50 events in all of Oklahoma history for the centennial in 2007, number 2 on that after the Louisiana Purchase, Reconstruction Treaties of 1866. It changed the course of history for the Indian people, for the Indian Territory, for the state of Oklahoma.
How we are formed now as a state, you have to understand what happened as a result of the Civil War in Indian Territory.
So much of who we are today is reflected in who we were, and the change is coming about because of the Civil War, because of the Battle of Honey Springs.
The enemy's loss was as follows. Killed upon the field and buried by my men, 150. Wounded, 400, and 77 prisoners taken. 1 piece of artillery, 1 stand of colors, 200 stand of arms, and 15 wagons, which I burned. The Union loss is 17 killed. 60 wounded, most of them slightly. Much credit is due to all of them for their gallantry. The 1st Kansas particularly distinguished itself. They fought like veterans and preserved their line unbroken throughout the engagement. Their coolness and bravery I have never seen surpassed. They were in the hardest of the fight and opposed Texas troops twice their number, culminating in a complete rout. A decisive victory which has led us to control the Texas road within Indian Territory. Very respectfully, your obedient servant, Major General James G. Blunt.
It's thought to be, if not one of the most culturally diverse conflicts to ever take place in the entire Civil War.
There is something fascinating about this battle in that we have 3, possibly 4 different races that are fighting. I mean, we have Native Americans, we have black soldiers, we have whites, and there's a lot of belief that even Mexican or Hispanic troops would be with those Texas soldiers that it came up.
When I think about the Battle of Honey Springs, I think about the African Americans that fought there and whose legacy that we should represent. They earned a place in history, but they have not received the recognition that they should have.
It makes it a significant battle in that this was an American battle, maybe more than any other battle we've really ever had in the Civil War, where we're a diverse people that were made up of a lot of different backgrounds.
And for the record, I hope that historians finally will agree that the war was about slavery. States' rights and the other kind of stuff was all smokescreen.